You know that feeling. Lying in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, mind running through the same conversation again and again. The words that weren't said. The gestures you didn't make. The one text you didn't send. The one glance you avoided. Somewhere between the ticking of the clock and the quiet hum of your thoughts, a question lingers. Why does your mind keep circling, even when your body is exhausted? Overthinking isn't just a habit. It's a survival mechanism. One that often traces its roots back to a childhood you may barely remember. But why does the brain hold on so tightly to imagined what-ifs and what could have been? Why does it insist on rehearsing mistakes that might never happen? Imagine a child sitting alone on the edge of a bed, small shoulders hunched, listening to the muffled voices of adults arguing in the kitchen. Every word, every pause, every sigh becomes a puzzle, a code they feel they must crack to survive. The child learns quickly attention is safety, prediction is safety, overthinking is survival. Years later, that same child grows up into someone who scrolls endlessly through their phone at midnight, pausing at unread messages, wondering if they've said the right thing, or if saying anything at all was the wrong thing. In crowded rooms, they stand on the edges, avoiding eye contact, replaying interactions, analyzing silence as if it were dangerous. Their mind never rests, never fully trusts the moment. And yet, no one sees the intricate, internal dance happening beneath their calm exterior. There's a strange loneliness in overthinking. Not the obvious kind, but the quiet, knowing kind that arrives in moments of pause. You've probably felt it. The subtle panic in waiting rooms, the wait in quiet mornings before anyone else wakes, the urge to read hidden meanings into a smile, a glance, a text, and still you carry on outwardly composed. Why? Because somewhere deep down, your mind learned that overthinking keeps you safe. Think back to the last time you felt that familiar pull, overanalyzing a conversation that was over an hour ago, maybe even yesterday. Did you wonder why it's so hard to stop? Why your mind won't let a single thought go, even when the rest of your life demands attention? That persistence isn't random. It's a remnant of a time when your survival depended on noticing every detail, when every emotional signal might have mattered. In our previous video on chronic emotional exhaustion, we explored how long-term suppression of feelings can slowly drain your inner energy. Overthinking walks hand in hand with that exhaustion. Every what if imagined, every scenario rehearsed, takes a little more from your emotional reserves. It's subtle, almost invisible, but over years it accumulates, layering onto the wariness you may already feel from constantly managing emotions that once felt unsafe to express. Picture the mind of an overthinker like a dimly lit room, corners heavy with shadows. Thoughts drift across it like restless, silent ghosts. Every time you notice a sound outside the window, every time you catch someone's gaze lingering too long, or not long enough, you replay it in a loop. Did I misread that? Did I do something wrong? Could I have prevented this? Could I have said more? Could I have said less? And then just as quickly, the mind spins the question into another why do I do this? Overthinking isn't always loud. Often it's subtle, hiding in the quiet moments when you scroll through your phone, pausing on the glowing screen long after messages stop coming. It lives in the silence of a room, in the hesitation before you answer, in the way you check the mirror twice before leaving, wondering if the reflection you show is safe enough, acceptable enough, understandable enough. Have you noticed how overthinkers tend to carry multiple versions of themselves in their heads? Different reactions for different imagined scenarios, different masks for different people, each version rehearsed endlessly, each nuance considered, each possibility tested. And yet in public, we present only one controlled, measured, seemingly calm self. The rest, those countless internal selves, remain tucked behind our eyes. There's a subtle mystery in this behavior though. Why do some minds cling so tightly to hypothetical dangers, to imagine criticisms, to invisible rules? And why does the need to analyze never truly vanish, even in safe spaces, even decades later? These questions linger like shadows. They never fully answer themselves. You may find yourself asking the same question over and over. What if I miss something? What if I fail? What if someone sees too much of me? The overthinker's mind is always scanning, always rehearsing, always anticipating, but the origin is buried in a mix of childhood instinct, emotional sensitivity, and the unconscious promise that vigilance keeps you protected. Some of the quietest overthinkers are the ones who carry the heaviest internal weight. They are the ones who can sit through long dinners, exchanging small talk with a practiced smile, while simultaneously analyzing every word that was said 2 nights ago. The eyes may appear relaxed, the voice steady, but beneath that surface, the mind hums with 1,000 small calculations, predictions, and rehearsals. And yet, overthinking is also strangely intimate. It's the way we get to know ourselves painfully, layer by layer. We witness our own fears, our own missteps, our own emotional reactions, with a clarity that others rarely see. The question becomes, how do you live with a mind that never stops scanning, calculating, imagining, but also deeply feeling? Look at your own life for a moment. The last time you lingered on a message you weren't ready to reply to. The last time you rewound a conversation in your head. The last time you watched someone's expression change and felt an entire story unfold in your imagination. What does it feel like, knowing that your mind learned these habits for safety, not for inconvenience? Overthinking is not weakness, it's a remnant of survival. But it's complicated, because the very mechanism that once protected you can now feel like a chain, heavy, invisible, persistent. And just when you think you understand it, just when you think you've traced the pattern, another thought emerges, another what if, another loop, another silent, glancing question to the universe. In quiet moments, it may strike you that you are both prisoner and protector of your own thoughts. The mind that watches, that predicts, that analyzes. It is vigilant, yes, but also endlessly curious, endlessly alive, endlessly haunted by the echoes of its own history. And maybe that's the subtle truth we rarely acknowledge. Overthinking isn't something to fix. It's a story that began long ago, a story of survival, of sensitivity, of hyper-awareness that, at one point, kept you safe. The mystery is not why you overthink. It's why, even now, the mind refuses to stop questioning, analyzing, imagining, rehearsing. Why the quiet persistence remains. Why it's still alive in you. So the next time you find yourself lying awake, mind spinning, silent room around you, glowing phone in hand, remember those loops, those questions, those what-ifs. They are a map. A map of how you learn to survive, how you learn to feel deeply, how you learn to notice things others never saw. And yet the map is unfinished. Some paths are hidden, some corners shadowed. And maybe that's the point. The story is still being written. Overthinking often starts as a survival instinct in childhood. Imagine a small child perched on the edge of a worn bed, knees pulled tight to their chest, staring at the floor as voices echo from the next room. They don't understand all the words, but they understand the patterns, the tone, the weight behind the pauses, the quiet hisses and raised tones of adults, the sudden silences, the sighs that hang heavy in the air. All of it becomes a code to decipher, to survive. Every glance, every gesture, every half-spoken threat or warning is memorized and cataloged. It's not about being clever. It's about safety. It's about knowing what comes next before it arrives, because not knowing could feel dangerous. This child learns early that predicting outcomes is not optional. They notice the subtle signs, the twitch of an eyebrow, the clench of a fist, the way a parent's voice might soften when they are pleased or harden when they are frustrated. Every interaction becomes a puzzle, and the child becomes both observer and participant in an invisible game they never agreed to play. Overthinking, at its root, is born here. It's not mere habit or personality. It's instinct, a mental radar scanning constantly for threats, real or imagined, because a misstep in awareness once carried consequences. Fast forward a decade or two. That child grows into an adult, but the instincts remain. Overthinking shows up in quiet moments, in pauses that feel loaded, in long silences that make the mind race. It shows up in checking phones repeatedly, replaying conversations over and over, analyzing the tone, the timing, the choice of words. It appears when standing in a crowded room, heart pounding slightly, calculating every social nuance, every potential misinterpretation, every possible judgment. Overthinking is no longer about physical survival, it has become emotional survival. The same mental machinery once used to navigate a threatening household now monitors friendships, relationships, even minor social interactions, with the same meticulous care. The strange part is that this instinct feels automatic. Most overthinkers don't consciously choose to replay every what if, or imagine every potential outcome. The mind simply does it because it learned early that vigilance was life-saving. The echoes of childhood experiences persist, like a shadow in the corner of the room, quiet but ever present. Even in moments of calm, even when surrounded by people who mean no harm, the overthinking mind remains alert, scanning for danger, rehearsing scenarios, anticipating conflicts that may never occur. This instinct doesn't only live in moments of interaction, it lives in solitude too. Lying in bed at night, the glow of a phone screen reflecting softly across the walls, overthinkers may scroll slowly, linger on a text they haven't sent, imagine how a message might be interpreted, second-guess the timing, the tone, the words themselves. They might pause, staring at the ceiling, tracing the sequence of events in their mind, as if watching an old film over and over. Each thought is a careful simulation of possible outcomes, a mental rehearsal born from years of needing to stay safe, to anticipate, to predict. Overthinking also feeds on emotional sensitivity. Childhood experiences often shape not just thought patterns, but the depth and intensity of emotional perception. Sensitive children feel more acutely the tension in the room, the shifts in mood, the subtle cues others might overlook. When combined with an instinct for vigilance, this sensitivity amplifies overthinking. The child learns to notice everything, to hold every detail, because every detail could matter. Later, that same child, now adult, carries an internal awareness that can feel exhausting, even isolating, because the mind never truly rests. Every conversation, every glance, every silence becomes potential material for analysis. It shows up in the small, everyday moments, the hesitation before sending a text, the need to reread an email multiple times, the careful consideration of every word in a social media post. Overthinking can transform ordinary decisions into miniature battles of the mind. Each choice becomes a testing ground. What could go wrong? What did I miss? How might this be perceived? The mind rehearses endlessly, not out of worry, not out of habit, but because that was the very skill that kept the child safe. The mental patterns that once served survival now shape adult life, often quietly, invisibly, with consequences that are more emotional than physical but no less real. Overthinking is intimately tied to memory and anticipation. Childhood experiences create mental templates that overthinkers replay constantly. Every subtle cue, every warning signal, every tense conversation contributes to a map of potential outcomes. And the mind, trained in vigilance from a young age, continues to map new interactions using the same tools. Late-night thoughts, unread messages, avoided eye contact, long pauses, they all trigger the same patterns. The mind doesn't always distinguish between past dangers and present harmlessness. It simply scans, analyzes, predicts, rehearses. It acts as though the stakes remain as high as they once were, because survival instincts rarely deactivate entirely. Even simple, mundane scenarios carry echoes of this pattern. A child who learned that silence meant danger may, as an adult, feel a pang of unease when a friend doesn't reply promptly. A child who memorized facial expressions to anticipate conflict may find themselves replaying a casual conversation at work or imagining subtle shifts in tone after a meeting. Overthinking, in this sense, is not a flaw. It is a deeply ingrained survival response, a cognitive echo of a mind that once needed to be alert to survive, now shaping perception and emotion in every waking moment. Overthinking is both exhausting and intimately revealing of self. There's a strange paradox to it. The same mental loops that drain your energy also expose the deepest corners of your heart, the hidden chambers of your mind where few others are allowed to enter. Imagine sitting alone in a dimly lit room, the faint glow of a phone or a laptop screen painting your face in pale light. Outside, the world carries on in predictable rhythm, but inside your mind is alive with possibility, with memory, with interpretation. Every word spoken to you, every glance cast your way, every pause, every silence becomes material for examination. The mind churns quietly, tirelessly, not just replaying events but analyzing them, questioning them, exploring them in ways that no one else can see. It's exhausting because the brain is never truly at rest. While others might drop a conversation after it ends, let go of a passing thought, or move through the day without returning to a moment that has passed, the overthinker loops endlessly. That question you didn't answer fast enough. That phrase that sounded odd. That unspoken tension you sensed in the room but couldn't name. All of it lingers. Each memory is replayed, dissected, weighed, and measured for meaning. You find yourself imagining not only what could have gone differently, but also why it went as it did, what it says about others and, most revealing of all, what it says about you. And that is where the intimacy comes in. Overthinking is not just a mental burden. It's a private reflection on the self, often deeper than most people ever allow themselves to explore. It's a window into how you perceive the world, how you interpret interactions, and how you relate to others. It reveals your fears, your sensitivities, your attachments, and the ways you have been shaped by experience. Every loop, every mental rehearsal, every "what if" thought carries with it a trace of identity. The questions your mind refuses to stop asking are also questions about who you are and what you feel, quietly mapping out the unseen terrain of your emotional life. Consider the small, everyday moments, say, rereading a text before sending it, imagining how it might be interpreted, rewriting it in your head, second, guessing every word. Or sitting in a social setting, noticing a subtle shift in tone, replaying a comment someone made hours ago, wondering what it implied. To an outsider, it may seem trivial, or even unnecessary. But to the overthinker, these moments are deeply revealing. They show patterns of attachment, sensitivity, and caution. They expose where vulnerability lies, where self-protection is strongest, and where the mind seeks connection, understanding, or validation. Overthinking, in this sense, is not just noise, it is a mirror held up to the self. But mirrors can be heavy. The same depth of insight that overthinking offers also demands energy. To constantly analyze, anticipate, and replay is to keep the mind in a state of high alert. Quiet moments are rarely quiet, they are filled with mental rehearsals, imagined scenarios, and alternative possibilities. Even moments of solitude can be exhausting, because the overthinker is never truly alone. They are always accompanied by the mind, which examines, critiques, and evaluates. It is a relentless companion, one that never sleeps, one that never rests, one that both reveals and consumes. Overthinking also exposes contradictions and complexities within the self. It shows where confidence and doubt coexist, where clarity and confusion overlap, and where desires and fears collide. Every interaction is filtered through layers of perception and memory, and every imagined outcome is colored by previous experiences. The overthinker becomes acutely aware of nuance, not only in others but in themselves. They notice the subtle hesitations, the impulses, the hidden emotions that others might ignore. In doing so, overthinking becomes an intimate dialogue with the self, one that often goes unnoticed by anyone else but is profoundly formative. And yet, this intimacy can feel isolating. The depth of observation that overthinking provides often separates the overthinker from those around them. While others might move on from a passing slight, a forgotten message, or a misread comment, the overthinker remains entwined in it. They revisit it, replay it, analyze it for insight, meaning, and understanding. The exhaustion comes not just from the energy spent thinking, but from the gap it creates between inner and outer worlds. Others see only the finished surface, calm, polite, composed. But beneath, the mind is a constant current of reflection and scrutiny, quietly revealing the self while demanding everything from it. Overthinking also illuminates desires that are rarely spoken aloud. It shows what you truly care about, what you fear losing, and what matters enough to occupy hours of mental energy. Every imagined scenario, every replayed conversation, every question asked to oneself is a reflection of values, priorities, and emotional needs. The very act of overthinking is a measure of intimacy with the self and acknowledgement of what matters, even when the world cannot see it. The exhaustion and the revelation coexist intertwined. One cannot exist without the other. Overthinking is draining because it requires constant attention, constant simulation, constant analysis. It is revealing because it exposes patterns, emotions, vulnerabilities, and truths that lie beneath the surface. The mind both consumes and uncovers, both burdens and illuminates. It is a private, tireless witness to the self, recording what is noticed, feared, cherished, or misunderstood. Even in moments of outward composure, the overthinker's mind continues its quiet work. The late-night thoughts, the unspoken questions, the imagined interactions, all of it is an internal exploration of self and world. It is intimate because it is personal, exhausting because it is relentless, and revealing because it touches layers of identity that are otherwise hidden, unexamined, and rarely shared.